I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Yuwad and Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all First Nations, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who may be watching today's episode.
Am I dyeing my hair? Am I injecting myself because of this belief that I'm not enough? I was so always switched on and I didn't know how to calm that down.
As someone, who's in recovery, who really understands that feeling of guilt and shame and how much damage those emotions can do to us, I do truly believe, though, that there are people that come into our lives to teach us those lessons.
Welcome to shtsfcked, the podcast that gets real about addiction, mental health, and everything in between. I'm Paris, and I spent 17 years battling the bottle, 10 years hooked on meth, and I also did a stint in the escorting world, which nearly cost me everything, including my life. I was lost, disconnected, and completely unrecognizable from who I once was. With both lived and professional experience, including qualifications in alcohol and other drugs, I'm here to share what I've learned along the way. Shtsfcked isn't about offering the right way to recover. It's about showing that recovery is actually very personal. Every journey's unique, and this podcast brings you stories, insights, and practical tools to help you find what works for you. Now, just a disclaimer, we dive into some tough topics here, including addiction, all forms of abuse, trauma, mental illness, suicide, self-harm, and the realities of life in recovery. These discussions can be intense, so please take care while listening and just make sure you're in the right headspace too. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast. Your support actually helps us more than you know, and it's one of the best ways to keep these conversations going. I hope you enjoy the show.
And welcome, Emma Makepeace. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am incredibly excited, and I'm not going to lie, about 20 minutes before this started, I had some mega imposter syndrome kick in where I was just like, who are you? Like, who are you to do this stuff? And I was like, go take a pause, take a breath, like, you deserve to be here.
Honestly,
it's all good.
That is me every single time I do an episode. I'm just like, shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? No one wants to listen to what you got to say, Paris. But no, honestly, I think that's so common, and you just have to break through that because, what we have to say is very valuable, and we do have some really good insight on things, and people deserve to hear it.
Exactly. So yeah, it's giving yourself that pep talk before coming. But I was like, I need to give voice to it because I know like it's just such a common thing. It doesn't matter how many times you've been on a podcast or like recording your own podcasts or any of that, it still creeps in where, you just go, but no, all good.
Sure.
And I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to have you here. So I'll pretty much just dive straight in. I don't really waffle around at the start. So first question is, Emma, can you start by telling us a bit about your background and upbringing in sunny Queensland?
Absolutely. So yes, I am a Queenslander, North Queensland born and bred, and now living down in the southern or southeast Queensland. I don't do winter. Like I just don't do winter at all. Because of growing up in North Queensland. Like you get like one day of winter and it's for about 5 minutes. And so I grew up in this atmosphere of just never wearing clothes and being hot all the time and all things tropical. And just growing up in that quite rural aspect as well of, small communities, small country towns where kids just play on the street and everybody was, looked out for each other or had those big family kind of come together where it was all the families together. That was your village where everybody kind of looked after everybody else's kids. So if you didn't have family support, you had that, which was something that was really important. and still is for me. And, was obviously foundational for me because now in the work that I do in women's circles and coaching and things like that, it's been such a major influence for me. So I was also a gymnast as a kid. So I spent 12 years doing gymnastics.
Oh, wow.
And I have, was the classic overachiever, perfectionist, type A personality. If I didn't do it perfect, then beating myself up about it, like shame spiral galore. And so, that carried through for quite a long time. It also contributed to eating problems in my teenage years because, we were weighed and measured weekly. This was high-level gymnastics that I was in by the time I sort of hit, I think it was around 10, 11, 12. So, those pre-teen years. So very habit building kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And so we were weighed and measured every week, and just that drive for perfection. And, if you didn't achieve that, then you weren't enough. And these were things that were going way beyond what was expected of normal kids. And so it kind of, it again laid foundations for later on in life. And I've now spent a lot of years unlearning all of that and realizing that, I can still love the experiences that I had as a kid in those environments, but also realize that, and those environments have also grown because we all now know better than to, do those types of practices. But it's a big unlearning for me in how do I show up for my kids or myself or other women in terms of how we talk about our bodies, how we talk about other people's bodies, which we just don't, or not to judge or anything like that. Like it's unlearning so much stuff that comes from that. So, yeah, those are sort of some of the foundational things that have really shaped who I am.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That sounds so intense. Like from being a teenager and having to go on these weekly weigh-ins, like that is really intense because that's obviously when you're the most like moldable, right? And with not only just having, the pressure to be a certain weight, or is there like a set weight you had to be when you were doing gymnastics? Is that why they weighed you?
It's really weird because I was always at school I was one of the smallest people, always, up until like grade 12. I was one of the smallest. When you line up for class photos, I was either the smallest or the second smallest. And yet when I was in my squad for training, I was one of the biggest. And it's a very strange thing to try and piece together as a preteen, is to try and understand, I'm small out here, but over here I'm viewed as big or like too big. And it doesn't, like, how do you make sense of that when you're young? It's not that it was like whether you were too fat or too big or anything like that, but it was just to keep track of and to also monitor, like, what were you eating? So were you fueling yourself properly? Or if you weren't, like, then as a kid, it's hard to know because I can't sort of remember from anybody else's perspective of how the coaches approached it. But you do go into a shame spiral, if you've had Maccas or you've eaten ice cream, which I loved, and, feeling like either you couldn't put it down because you didn't want to get shamed or judged for it, because that's just the way that you internalize it. You know that it's wrong. Like, you knew that it was wrong, but you also just want to be a normal kid.
Yeah, because that's like a lot to think about, as a teenager. And this is where eating disorders develop, right? Like as soon as we start fixating on these things, like what am I eating? How much do I weigh? And like really honing in on that on a weekly basis, like that. That is a recipe for an eating disorder right there.
Yeah, and it's something that honestly I still am navigating because I'm now in my early 40s. I'm perimenopausal, and my body shape is changing again. And after giving birth to my first child 5 years ago, my body shape has changed. And it's an adjustment to learn to love and accept how it is, and to go, do you know what? This is like physiologically, like this is what your body needed to do to give birth. And now your hormones are shifting. And so that's why now your body shape is shifting. But to undo, like to catch myself when those thoughts, those belief systems that were created all those years ago come back through. And also, I'm an 80s baby. And so we grew up in the whole, aerobics Oz style time where it was the big hair and the shoulder pads and the really, really, really skinny waists and the neon lycra.
It's not a time that we miss or anything. Goodness.
No. And it's been really interesting just like seeing across social media other people who grew up in this time just reflect on the ways that body shape was communicated through the media, through, like your Dolly and Cleo magazines.
Yes.
And
I was even influenced by that.
Yeah, all of those types of things. And the interviews that took place with young actresses and celebrities and the body shaming questions, like when you re-see them now in reels or video clips or TikToks or things like that, and you sit there and go, how on earth could someone ask someone that question? It's just so incredibly wrong. It's so harmful. But back then it was all we knew. Yes.
Times have definitely changed since then. And it's crazy because you see celebrities like today, well, particularly actually not even just today, but probably around those 90s, early 2000 periods, they were really gaining a lot of bad rap for any kind of weight gain. So they'd be down at the beach, in their bikini, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, look at this person, rolls galore. And they're just not, they're not even unhealthy. They're still within the healthy range. But
they're literally just bending over to pick something up, and you were going to have rolls, and yet it was still made, it was still perpetuated to be so wrong.
Yeah.
So
I hear it's honestly such a tough time for everyone. It still is. It's still very much a tough time for everyone, especially, with even Ozempic kind of coming across the scene now, and everyone's just trying to get their hands on it because we're obviously still very conscious about how we look and, how we're feeling about ourselves.
It's something, so Embrace You, which is one of the workshops that I offer to women in particular, is a space to start unlearning all that stuff and to learn, relearn, reconnect with, what if I just loved myself and accepted myself as I am? What does that look like? How does that feel? How do I just become okay with where I'm at? And it's again really interesting because, like I said, I'm in my early 40s. I've got grey hairs galore kind of coming on through, and embracing all of those things and just going, okay, where is this space of, am I dyeing my hair? Am I injecting myself? Am I, choosing this, that, and the other to do with beauty and health standards because of this belief that I'm not enough? Or am I choosing it to creatively express myself?
Yes.
Or am I choosing it because it's a trauma response, because I may have experienced trauma against this part of my body, and now I need to change that so that I can reclaim power in that part of my body. And none of it is right or wrong, but it's just, I guess, that awareness of what is our intention behind it, so that we can learn to love ourselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You said that perfectly. It's why we're making those choices, right? Really looking inwards to why we've decided to do something. And as you say, there's a lot of things that we also do for creative expression. So as you said, no right or wrong. So you just said that beautifully. That I just completely agree with everything you said. Because I know for myself, I still really struggle with my body image. And, you know, I was someone who went through a pretty intense eating disorder. It was actually when I was 18 through to about 24. And then I did recover, but of course I was using a lot of drugs. And so I naturally stayed on the smaller side anyway. But then when I did actually start recovering, particularly from meth, which was keeping me thinner, and then I started going on to different medications like antipsychotics and things like that, which make you gain weight. It's been such a journey, and it's even been something that I definitely want to talk about more in another episode, just like those impacts of weight gain and what that can do. And just having to, you know, in my recovery, get to a point where I can be okay with myself. You know, I remember even last year, there was nothing in my wardrobe that fit me, nothing. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is horrible. Like I hate this feeling. Like I literally can't go into my cupboard and find anything that will fit me. Like it was just the worst feeling in the world. So I ended up doing like a huge closet clean out, and I bought a whole new wardrobe, and it made me feel so much better because I bought clothes that fitted my new body that was still really nice, and I was able to express myself in ways that I wanted to, but just couldn't fit in the previous clothes. And that made a huge difference. And just really, again, trying to be okay with the changes that my body is going through. And, you know, this is a part of the journey. And, you know, why do I feel that I'm not enough as is? You know, whose standard is this that I'm trying to meet? You know, what is my standard?
Yep.
So it's been
absolutely. It's funny. I've been going through that same thing with the closet like clean out and going, okay, like, you know, none of my jeans fit me anymore. And even my stretchy pants jeans, they didn't fit me anymore. And going, okay, rather than going, oh my God, this is like horrible, you know, my new body that has evolved, that has carried a child, that I love hiking, and I go hiking whenever I can. And so I now have like butt muscles that I haven't had for years, and leg muscles. And so my body composition has changed. And I'm like, so go buy new jeans.
Yeah.
Like just go to an op shop or go to a shop or whatever and go try on some jeans like that fit you so that you feel really comfortable and awesome again. Because rather than freaking out and going, oh my God, like I need to fit back in those clothes, this is an evolution of who we are, and we're constantly changing. And so, you know, and there's, especially in, you know, spirituality and personal development, all these things, we're constantly talking about, you know, the evolution of self and the growth. Like if you're not growing, you're dying and blah, blah, blah. So why don't we give our body, our physical body, that same allowance, that same acceptance? You know, I have endometriosis as well. So my body shape is not the same from, you know, where I am this week. In a week's time, I won't fit any of my pants again, even my new ones. So, and I just go in, you know, track pants it is and leggings. And then I will, in 2 weeks' time after that, I'll fit them all again because that's how much it shifts and changes. And the acceptance that has had to come to just, you know, allow it to be. Like it's normal.
Yeah.
All of Mother Nature goes through these seasons and cycles and decay and growth and, you know, just ebbs and flows. That's all your body is doing too.
Yeah.
When you bloat out, you're at a high tide. When you're not, you're at a low tide.
Love it. Love it. That was such a good analogy. That's beautiful. That's so good. Oh, well, I guess, like, you know, we are on the topic of, I guess, your physical well-being. So the second question I wanted to ask you was, like, you had told me previously when we spoke before that you've had also a challenging journey with chronic fatigue, like starting at about 17. So how did this condition in particular shape your life?
Oh, this one was big. This was to go from being an overachieving, incredibly active teenager. So like at high school, even when I finished doing gymnastics, I still then was on like the gymnastics team at school. When we moved down to Southeast Queensland, I played hockey, I played basketball, I played soccer, was on the athletics team. I did HPE, like I did all the sports. Any sport I could fit into my time, I did. And to then go from that to shortly after starting university to then not being able to even, walk from my bedroom to the kitchen, which was, about 10 meters without then needing a nap. It was a mind fuck. It was like bluntly, it was just how like I'm coming into the prime of my life that I've been told, where I'm able to go out, like, start to go out partying with all my friends.
You're an adult now, yeah.
Having freedom to be an adult, even though, I'm not quite 18 yet, but I'm getting there, all like you're on the precipice and it's like, cut down. Nope, no more. And so no drinking, no partying, no nothing. Like it was off to the naturopath and more blood tests and let's try and balance this out. And it was exhausting. And, I went on antidepressants at the time because part of that is there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of depression that comes through with it. And so went on antidepressants to bring me back up to a baseline where I could at least mentally then start to heal myself and work slowly on rebalancing things and find who I was as this person, again, in this new season of my life. And it has played a massive role for the past 20 odd years now of reminding me to not push to the point of burnout, to, pay attention to those symptoms, to those little nudges from the body when it's going to, I'm really tired. Can we just take a moment? Just have the chill and watch the Netflix instead of trying to cram one more thing into today. Or, you don't need to go to the gym all the time. Like it's okay to just go catch up with some girlfriends and laugh, or do something with, your family or whatever it might be. Like just go sit in nature. Don't even need to hike, but just like go sit down by the beachfront or something and just chill out. And so it was a blessing in disguise. It was horrible at the time because you feel like, oh my God, my life is over. Like, and it's just supposed to be starting. But once I worked through it, and antidepressants were a big part of that, to give me that mental space to just be able to make decisions again on, okay, here is one thing that I can do for myself today. Yeah. Here is one thing I can do the next day. And that's enough. And also that acceptance of that is enough. Like when I gave birth to my little boy, I set myself, my daily to-do list was, I'm such a to-do list person, but it was, if all I do today is have a shower and get outside, then I have achieved everything I've set out to do. Like, and I've had a successful day. And then anything else I do on top of that, like cleaning or washing or, whatever else, work as he got a bit bigger, that's a bonus. But if all I do today is, I should add in there, like, hang out with my baby, have a shower and get outside. That's it. That's all I need right now in this in that postpartum time. And had I not been through these experiences, I don't know if I would have had the capacity to offer that to myself.
Yeah, it sounds like you really learned how to honor yourself through, the seasons, as your body evolved, whether that's through, weight gain, endo, chronic fatigue, and, new bodies after babies, all sorts of different things. I think that's so important. And, there's a lot of people that really struggle with that. That's a real fight for a lot of people. Even myself, like I find it hard sometimes to have a rest day, because then I do still feel unproductive. I'm like, I'm not doing enough. Like, you're being lazy, but like this is terminology that I need to reframe and to not use. Like, I need to be telling myself different things, like, it's okay to rest. Resting is still productive. Like, we're doing something for ourselves. Like, it's really
rest.
Honoring yourself.
Yeah, resting is like, it's been given such a bad rap, and it's like, hang on, but when you rest, that's when you re-energize, and when you re-energize, that's when shit just starts to happen. Like, it flows so much more easier. It's it's almost like that whole slingshot analogy, if you've ever heard it, where like, if you constantly have the tension on, it's just like gonna snap at some point. But if you have like that rest point, and then you can, like, it kind of allows you to then regroup and go and fling forwards really fast, because you've given yourself some space to just allow your body to recover, give yourself some mental clarity again. And that's when creativity comes alive, because you've taken that pause. You're not so full of all the things, like, you're not overstimulated, you're not got 100 things on the go. You've taken that break to allow yourself to see the bigger picture again and go, okay, here's where I need to go next. Here's where I need to focus my energy to move forwards.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. I literally had this experience this week. So on Tuesday, I was like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do this. But I was lying in bed, and I was like, I can't move. I just can't. I was like, I just don't have it in me today. I don't think I can do anything. And I ended up binge watching Vikings the whole day.
So good.
I've never seen it, and oh my gosh, what a treat to be able to actually just binge it all. But like, it's honestly, I was really battling myself and feeling really guilty at the start, because I was like, Paris, like, you don't have time for this. You got shit that needs to be done like yesterday. Like, get up off your ass. But after a while, I just gave into it, because I was like, nah, you know what? I've got a really busy week ahead. Like, I think I just really need this. So I'm just going to listen to how my body is responding right now. And I'm going to surrender. I'm going to surrender right now. And I had a great day. And I have been so productive. Like, today, yesterday, I got so much shit done. And I truly put that down to my day of rest on Tuesday. I just felt like I was going 100 miles a minute the rest of this week. So,
I love it. I love it. And that's the thing, like, everyone who does it, when they finally rest, like, I've had people come into my programs and things, are like, nope, I can't stop. Like, I'm ADHD. I have to go. I don't know what boundaries are. Like, boundaries are shit, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, you go do what you need to do. And then I had someone come and do a restorative yoga class, and they were like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot. Like, this is going to be the most horrible thing I've ever done. And they, honestly, the first class, they did struggle.
Yeah.
And then they were the first person to book in for every other class that I offered, because they were like, I didn't realize how much I needed that time to just stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just allow myself to be there and rest. And then how much energy that they had afterwards, because they paused for a moment.
Yeah, and I think that's something we all need to start doing a little bit more of. But leading into my next question, I guess it's kind of on the same wavelength here. So mindfulness and spiritual growth have been a part of your life for the last 20 years. What initially drew you to these practices? So I think we've already touched on this a little bit, but would you like to dive in a little bit more on, I guess, what initially drew you to those particular practices, and how you evolved those practices?
So a combination of things. The biggest one was getting chronic fatigue syndrome when I was 17, obviously. And so I started doing, like, I've always been an avid reader. And so I, didn't really have a lot else to do with my time, because doing anything was exhausting. And so I read a lot and started to read and just explore different, philosophies and ideas, and read about different practices for mental health. And so mindfulness was one of those. And then started practicing yoga, because obviously from being so active, I missed moving. but I couldn't move in ways that were super active. Like I needed to do something that was quite gentle and calm and allowed me to learn how to regulate my nervous system. I was so always switched on and I didn't know how to calm that down. So yoga was a part of that process. And then actually I went traveling in Peru and I met a person while we were on the Inca Trail, and him and I became quite good friends, and we ended up traveling together a year later in Malaysia and had some things happen. This was actually where I realized the extent of my alcohol problem. He said to me afterwards, he was like, "Are you paying attention?" And I'm like, "Of course I am. What are you talking about?" And he was like, "But are you really? Because you are like, do you have any idea what's going on for you right now? Like, what are you avoiding? What is going on?" That was like huge for me. And after that, there was a lot, like it still took me quite a number of years to become sober, but it was a massive part of leaning into the messiness and the work that needs to be done, which is what spirituality really is. So, yeah, that was sort of long-winded way of getting there.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. And even just getting that awareness around, what are you avoiding? What are you feeling? What are you trying to use this crutch for? I think is such a pivotal part of any person even attempting recovery as well to really start thinking about and honing in on, because we are usually avoiding something. We're usually escaping from reality, or we're using it to regulate our nervous system. We're trying to avoid a uncomfortable feeling. There's so many ways that we can use alcohol, particularly like as such a crutch, and because it's so socially acceptable too, that doesn't make it any easier. It's tricky, that one, but I totally hear what you're saying, and I can see how that's opened the doors for you to start thinking a bit more mindfully, and then that can lead you on to other spiritual practices such as yoga. So I completely hear what you're saying.
The place that Yanni took me to spiritually felt heavenly, but it felt beyond that, felt like I was in the stars, like I was connected to my soul self.
So thank you, Yanni. This has been amazing, and what you have to offer is just pure medicine.
It's just amazing, and I'm just feeling so electric and happy, and I don't know when I ever felt this happy or good.
If you've been feeling like life's just a bit too much lately, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, this might be exactly what you need. Yanni Ford, one of our incredible guest speakers, has a discount on offer for her 4-month group mentorship program called Devotion. Devotion is about integrating every part of you, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, so you can experience real, lasting change. Through deep healing practices, home play, and ongoing support, you'll learn tools that actually stick. You'll create new habits that align with the woman you've always known you could be, empowered and fully in tune with your feminine essence. Throughout the program, you'll be surrounded by like-minded women on the same journey, holding each other accountable and feeling fully supported every step of the way. By the end of these 4 months, you won't just have learnt something, you'll be something different. Right now, for Shitsfucked listeners, if you mention us when booking your online discovery call with Yanni, it's just $3,700, which is a savings of $1,250 off the original price. And you can pay it off for as little as $100 a week. So no stress, no drama. It kickstarts on the 2nd of November, so if you're interested in snapping up these amazing savings, head to Yanni's Instagram page at yanni.ford, and that's Ford with a double O, and click the link on her profile page to book in a discovery call today.
I'm trying to be really mindful right now too, and practice all of these things, because my 5-year-old is outside my window, so and all I can hear is him playing, and I'm like, I'm really glad that you're having fun, buddy, but move on.
Jog on, will you? Jog on.
Anyway, so yes, coming back to the present.
That's it, isn't it? That's the mindfulness right there.
Do you know what kids are? Kids are honestly like the biggest teacher for spirituality and mindfulness. And I'm not going to lie, I don't get it right a lot of the time.
Does anyone? Let's be serious.
Exactly. And, you know, I feel like that's why I sort of acknowledged it, because I'm like, there's so much around that we see on social media and everything of all of these perfect looking, you know, people in business and doing these things. And especially as someone who, you know, holds space, and so it can come across that way, but it's not. Like it's messy a lot of the time. Like it is messy. The healing, the spirituality, even the mindfulness, like when the mindfulness stuff is really, you're doing the proper work, is in these moments where it's like, how am I responding to things? Am I acknowledging, you know, what is actually going on for me? And it's not to say that you need to then, you know, tell everybody every trauma that you're experiencing or going through. It's just that this is the reality of it. Like as a mum in business, my little guy's home sick today and he's excited because his dad has just come home from work. And so they're, you know, having a great old time. And me with, you know, my perfectionist, I'm doing this really important podcast interview. And so I need you guys to like be quiet and go somewhere else. And then it's like, of course that's not going to happen. Like, of course it's not going to happen. And it's okay. Like this is the reality of life as a mum in business. And you either can get really angry or frustrated about it, or you can go, this is the mess. Like this is the part of, but we still keep going anyway. Like we just, you know, it is what it is. So
absolutely, and it doesn't serve us to stay in that place of building on anger and resentment. Anyways, like my partner and I, like we do a lot of like emotional regulation. So he tends to be a lot quicker to anger than myself because I don't see the point often in even getting angry because I just think, oh, like, you know, it is what it is, and you know, I'm just gonna roll with the ebbs and flows, as you say. But like for someone like him, you know, he can be very disrupted by change and, you know, circumstances that he wasn't expecting and can get quite frustrated. And I'm like, how is that serving you? That does nothing for you but give you more grief. Like, why are you doing that to yourself? And that's kind of how I
honestly, if we were having this interview in 2 weeks' time when I am like premenstrual, different story. I'd be fuming. So,
of course.
Like, hormones can, like, it's all of these things that when you know you're working with women or you're building a business, it's the patriarchal business structures and strategies and all of those things, they don't fucking apply. So
no, I hear you.
Cherry pick bits and you can try bits, but you go trying to squeeze yourself into that box that just is not built for you and for your hormones and for your primary caregiver roles and all these other things. And you're going to implode because you're trying to be something that you're not, and you're trying to evolve and grow a business in a way that really doesn't suit your needs, your physical needs, your mental needs. And it leads, like, that is a recipe for anger and resentment right there.
Yeah, and that can, again, lead itself to a lot more other dysregulation and, you know, leaning towards, you know, alcohol, drugs and things like that to regulate ourselves again. So it's like the cycle continues.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right, let's look at the next question. So you mentioned to me previously when we were chatting as well that you have experienced significant loss and grief, like including sudden death of friends. How have these experiences also influenced your mindfulness and spiritual journey?
So the friend that I was talking about before who told me to pay attention, he has honestly been one of the biggest spiritual teachers of my life. He was someone who died unexpectedly. And it was really interesting because I'd met him in Peru, which on the Inca Trail, which is an incredibly, like, you know, monumental sacred site, a lot of energy. And after I left, I remember messaging him and I was like, I just have this overwhelming urge to go and get like angel wings tattooed on me. I was like, and I don't understand it because I'm not really big on angels as such. A year and 1 day later, after I met him, he died. And we'd actually had a conversation in Bangkok about where he said to me, I know I'm going to die soon.
Really?
And and it was about 6 or 7 weeks later, and he was in a light plane crash in Nepal on his way to do Everest. And so it was just, and I'd lost all my money playing blackjack poker in Vietnam, and so had to cut my travel short and come home, like, you know, $5,000 US gone. It's a whole nother story. And because blackjack poker is not even a game. I don't gamble, so I had no idea. But I was like just saying yes to all these things. I'm like, whoa, I'm traveling. Like, this will be so much fun. Next minute, like 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, Mom.
Oh dear.
I'm okay, but
I need help to get home.
Yeah, no, so I jumped the flight the next morning back to Bangkok and ran into him there. And so we had, you know, a couple of days of just talking about all things life. And he said to me, he was like, what do you like? And I rattled off some stuff. And he's like, no, you've just told me everything that I like. And I was like, what? Like, get over yourself. And then when I actually sat with it, because I got grumpy and I walked off, and I sat there and I was like, he's not wrong. Like, you don't know because you've always people pleased.
Yes.
Always liked what your boyfriends have liked, or, you know, this avoidance of who you are through alcohol, or, you know, once I did start drinking again, which was quite prolific. And then, so yeah, relationships, work, I always blended into those things to people please. And so I, you know, started a list. And when he died, like, I drank a lot of alcohol. I'm not going to lie. Like, that was one of my coping mechanisms. But I also then went back to some of those conversations that we'd had where it was like, well, what are you going to do when you get home? Now that you've got no money, like, your unit is being rented out, so you don't actually have anywhere to go and live right now because there's people in it. What are you going to do? So I went and did what any normal person would do and looked up like my numerology numbers to tell me what to do next, because I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to make a decision right now. Like, I've just lost someone who meant a huge amount to me, and I don't understand this because he can't be gone. Like, we still have conversations to have. And I ended up, like I'd said when I lost all my money, I was like, I'm never going to make it back overseas again. Like, you know, just ridiculous statement of, I'm never going to be able to do this stuff again. And 8 weeks later, I was on a plane to South Africa for the memorial service for him. We were there, and it was the day of the service, and there was a photo that he had put up from a square somewhere in Kathmandu, and he was surrounded by all these doves. There were all these doves on the ground in the square, and he was standing there. And I looked up the animal meaning of doves, and they meant angels. So he was surrounded by all these doves. And I was like, there's the connection to those angel wings.
Yes.
Yeah. So here was a person who was like my angel to guide me spiritually to reconnect with myself. I had to do all the work. He was there to kind of open me up to some things. And then it was like, okay, now you're ready to go do it on your own. And that was, you know, that took a lot to process and get around to, because grief, there is no time frame on grief. There isn't. And but I still draw on those lessons. here, there, and everywhere. When things happen, I'm like, okay, what do I need to pay attention to here?
Yeah, that's amazing.
What is it that I need to just tap into? Where am I too much in my head? And can I come back to my heart now to actually listen in? What is it that you truly want here? Not what somebody else wants. What is it that you require?
He sounds like he was such a powerful teacher.
Yeah. And whether that was his intention or not, who knows? But that's what I took from the relationship. And it just, it was one of those moments where there were just all those coincidences and things that just kind of dropped in. And so I went, thank you. I'm full of gratitude for you for all of these things. And so, your memory, your life, it had meaning for so many other different reasons.
Yeah.
But it's carried on also through these things that I now share with other people because I've learned from them.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. Like, I honestly, I truly believe, and like, I don't know necessarily what exactly I believe in the sense of, religion or like modern day spirituality, things like that. I definitely know there's a lot more going on beyond me. I believe that.
That's about where I'm at with it too. So.
Yeah. I'm always very mindful in the sense that I often think, if someone tells me they've got all the answers, I seem to resist it. I seem to resist it and think, I don't think any of us really know exactly what's going on. And again, just my own personal belief, no judgment to anyone who does follow religions or modern day spirituality practices. But I do truly believe, though, that there are people that come into our lives to teach us those lessons, and they serve like a chapter in our lives. They're not always with us for the whole ride. And it sounds like he was exactly that for you. And I just think, wow, like it's just so powerful to see like the ripple effect as well from those words that he shared with you. Like, so sad that his time was cut short on this earth, but I love to see that, you've really taken on everything that he taught you and now you're teaching it to others. Like, that's beautiful.
You've touched on a really good point, I feel, because we get, particularly when it comes to friendships, I think it's something that we just don't talk about as much. Like, when you have a breakup in a relationship or something, or somebody dies, like we understand that grief happens with those. But with friendships, and especially if the other person hasn't died, we actually grieve in those as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that it's such a weird space to be in because it's something that we've not really ever discussed. And, it comes up a lot in my women's circles where you move on from friendship groups or things like that. And it always feels like you've done something wrong and maybe you have, like, none of us are perfect. We all fuck up and we do stupid things and say stupid things that we don't necessarily mean because we're reactive, because we're trying to, figure out, like, we've got trauma responses coming up that we're not even aware of or whatever. But it's just, having these spaces for women to start to talk about those things and go, oh, that's actually like a form of grief too. Like, someone doesn't have to die, but it's just that relationships of all sorts can come to an end and it can feel like a death. And it's actually okay for me to grieve those.
Yes.
And realize that, it doesn't have to go on forever. Like, I hear it from women who might have had a falling out with a sibling, like their sister, and just trying to navigate, well, who am I if I'm not like best friends with my sister anymore, or other friendship groups or anything like that? Like, it brings up a lot for us.
I actually think they're worse than relationship breakups because I don't know. I feel like when it comes to friendships, like, you often will view that friendship like for life, and that it's such a different dynamic to a relationship. I still view those friendships as soulmates, like, in a sense, they're your ride or dies. And
we forget, though, that those ride or dies can just be for one season no matter how long that is as well.
Exactly. And that's something that I had to learn, particularly through my recovery, because I pissed off a lot of people during my active addiction. I was a twat. Like, honestly, like, look, I wasn't horrendous, but I also wasn't great either.
We've all been there. You are not alone.
Yeah, like I did some real shitty things, and I hurt a lot of people. And so I had to come to a point in my recovery as well where I had to just accept that people were not going to be my friend anymore, and that's okay. And even though I did recover and I got better, that doesn't mean that they need to come back into my life either. So it was really tough to acknowledge and to move through that, because of course I was 100% grieving. Like, I lost some of my best friends and people that I still love so much. I'll never not love them. So it's like really sad for me. Gosh, I can feel myself getting teary. Tearing on my podcast.
There's a line in Eat, Pray, Love that, it's incredibly corny, but it's incredibly true, where she's talking to Richard, who is a recovering alcoholic, and she says, well, but I miss him, talking about her ex-husband, and he goes, so miss him. Like, you can think of, every time you think about him, you can send them love and light. You can miss them. Like, you can still love those people.
Yes.
But you don't have to maintain a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And again, those people-pleasing tendencies where, but I have to fix this. Like, I need to fix it. And it's like, no, you actually don't. Like, it's come to its end. And so you can miss people, you can still love them, you can send them good vibes, energy, whatever it is you want to, call it.
Yeah.
But you don't actually still need to have a relationship.
Exactly. And even through my recovery journey, I did send like sorries and apologies to people that I felt like I really needed to voice that to. But then there were some people as well that I was like, I definitely owe them an apology, but I was like, I think it might even cause more harm than good if I try to contact them. And I don't think me giving an apology is going to actually serve them in a good way. Like, it's going to serve like me, it's going to make me feel a little bit better, but I don't think it's actually going to serve them. So I've had to be really mindful of, what is my intent with this? Like, will this person reciprocate this or not even reciprocate it, but are they in the position to even hear this? And they might
have the capacity to receive it.
Yeah. And have they set boundaries with me before when maybe they do not want contact at all, and I have to respect that. So, you know,
and that's hard.
It's really
we're
hard.
not taught any of this stuff. We are not taught any of this growing up about, I watch with little kids, and like as soon as someone hurts someone, they're told, go say sorry. And it's like, maybe that person doesn't actually want you in their space right now because you've just thumped them.
Yeah.
And they don't feel safe with you around. And, it's really nuanced and it's really difficult because we didn't grow up with any of this. And, I know you've just completed study, and I went and did trauma-informed coaching certificate because I was like, this is so much more nuanced, and the people pleaser in me wants to fix things for people, but that's not my role.
Yeah.
That's not my role. Like, that actually can cause more harm.
Yes.
Because you're not allowing people that agency to decide what it is that they need and to actually listen to what they're telling you, you know, and it can be a bit of an ego kind of thing to just get through, to work through and go, hang on, this is not about me. Like, stop making it about yourself and what you feel you need. There is absolutely a time and a place for that. Like self-care, all of those things, like massively important.
Yeah.
But when it comes to relationships of any kind, just, functioning in communities, with people, then it's so nuanced. It's so complex, and we're going to make mistakes with it because we're all actually learning how to do this stuff, which we've not ever been taught.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tricky. Like, it took me a while to get to that point of acceptance and just being able to let let things go and to not have my final say just because I felt I deserved to, I guess, take accountability in a sense, which of course, like I have to take accountability, but whether I voice that accountability to that particular person, really having to understand, is that something that I actually need to do in this situation? Like, can they hold that space? Do they even want it? Like, what is my intent with it? And just really having to think about that and be okay.
And if they have said that they're not available for it, but you still feel like for your accountability that you need to do something, can it be redirected to somewhere else that does need your energy for whatever it is, so that you can still heal what you need to heal? Maybe it is in therapy. Like, maybe you have that conversation in therapy. Maybe it is through volunteering. Maybe it's through whatever it looks like creating, people who have experienced things go on to then create programs and workshops that then they go and help hundreds of other people.
Yeah.
And so while they may not ever get the closure that the ego needs from what's happened, you still can, like, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Maybe that's redirecting you to go and pass it forwards, pay it forwards.
Totally agree. And it's one of the reasons why I do the podcast too. Like, it is a huge healer for me. Well, one thing I really did want to ask you about was, like, you mentioned to me previously that your greatest spiritual practice is navigating socializing and connection without drinking. How do you manage that? A bit of a doozy for you.
It's still a work in progress. It has been the thing that has helped me learn to set boundaries.
Yeah.
That have then filtered out into everything else in my life, and learning to set boundaries in all relationships, but learning to do it with people who are drinking. So I've been sober now for 7 to 8 years from alcohol, and was never a big drug taker, but have been clean from anything that I took then too. Honestly, I mostly didn't actually know if I was taking anything drug related because I would be so blackout drunk that was when it was happening. And I was like, I don't do drugs. And then I had some people go, I've seen you. And I'm like, what? When? And like at this thing. And I'm like, no, I don't do that stuff. And they're like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I was blackout drunk, where I could just be, fine and be completely aware of what was going on. And then the next minute, like, I would just see this blackness coming over.
Yeah.
And my body would keep going and everything would keep happening, but I would have absolutely no recollection of anything. That was a little bit scary sometimes. And so when I first got sober, I couldn't be around people who drink. My husband still drinks, not hugely at home, because I'm like, I don't have the capacity for it. And, he'll have a couple, but it's not like, getting pissed or anything. And so it's manageable. And it's actually been a really great space for me to do a lot of healing around how I feel about that, because it's never about him. It's actually about what's being triggered in me, and past behaviors and things like that. And so it's taught me an awful lot. And boundary setting was one of those where, things like, if we're going away camping with a bunch of people and it's a birthday, and so I know there's going to be a big night involved there somewhere, I need to set some ground rules where I'm like, okay, like the last occasion I was like, do you know what? I'm booking a unit next to the caravan park. I don't even want to camp near any of you because I want to sleep. Like, I want to get some sleep, and I want to have a safe space to come back to when I've had enough. Like when I'm sensory overload, when my little guy's tired and we just want to go to bed at like 7:30, because that's how we roll now. So and that's fine. We have these conversations before going somewhere or doing any of these things where there's going to be alcohol involved, and it doesn't always go to plan. But I know now enough to know that if it turns into, evolves into a situation where there are people who are quite drunk, and I can verbalize and communicate what it is that I require without putting them down without, I'm not having a go at you or anything, but here is, this is also my experience and I'm here and this is what I require. And sometimes it's received and sometimes it's not. But I know in those moments, if it's not personal at me.
Yeah.
It's never about me. And I don't have to back down either.
Yeah.
That I can still maintain that and be like, no, this is enough. Like, we have had conversations in the past. There was a particular spot that we went camping that was quite close to home. We do a lot of camping. And I was like, do you know what? If it gets too much, I will just go home and I'll come back tomorrow. Like, it's no big deal. It's easy. I then get sleep because, I'm a person who needs sleep. Like, I have a history of chronic fatigue syndrome, for crying out loud. Like, even though I don't have it now, I'm very aware of when I get pushed outside my limits. Yeah. And the other thing I've discovered, that being perimenopausal, that one trip that we went on, I'd had COVID like a week and a bit beforehand. I was clear to go out and things, and I hadn't really had any symptoms, but I hadn't done anything that week, so I was quite exhausted when we then went camping, and it was hot and just ugh. And I started having panic attacks over like everything. Everything was like, just everything we did, I'd start to just get really, I'm so overstimulated right now. And it was because my body was tired and I was like, I just need to rest still. Yeah. And so, it's really been a space of honoring myself and learning a lot along the way, because things come up in these situations. I don't put myself around people who are like, I don't go to pubs apart from like a dinner somewhere, but I don't actually go into the bar or anything like that because I don't need to. It's not something that interests me, but I can be around people who drink and not feel tempted to drink is the biggest thing. And it took a long time to get to that space, but learning that I matter was the key to that. Learning that what I need, what my body needs, all matters. And I don't need to make that small. I don't need to silence it just to keep other people happy.
Yes.
Like, they can have their experience, yes, but I'm also entitled to and allowed to go, do you know what? This is not okay for me. And so I'm either going to remove myself or I'm going to speak up and say what I need.
Yeah. And I honestly really relate to what you're saying. And I'll only touch on this quickly, but because I myself, like, I do still drink, but I've really changed my relationship with alcohol. So I drink maybe once or twice a month, but now I'm getting to that point now where I'm a bit like, well, this is a bit pointless, like, why am I even bothering with the one or two drinks a month? But the reason I ended up kind of going that way is because I have a partner that drinks, and I was finding it very, very difficult to navigate complete abstinence around him. I mean, I attempted to, but I got so triggered by him. It was actually really disrupting our relationship, and it was something where we even had to go to counselling about because I couldn't get a grip on it. It was just, I just was getting very, very worked up, and I just felt constantly in fear, like I was in danger. And, it was, of course, it was all about me. Like, it wasn't about him at all. But I think as well, though, when you go through particularly recovery with alcohol, the veil drops. Like, you see so much more going on in society around drinking. So I started to view things very differently, which was getting me worked up. Like, I was looking at my partner like, oh, like, you're so like dysregulated, or like, oh my gosh, like, you're telling yourself like you need to wind down, like, oh, it's just a stupid belief, like, just constantly going. And then, watching him just like drink and drink and drink. And I'm like, you're drinking poison. You're poisoning your body. It didn't stop. And I was going wild in my head. I was like, I cannot deal with this. I was like, you are driving me crazy. But it was me that was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting because when you like are becoming sober, or when you first start to have like a spiritual awakening or any of those types of things, like the automatic action that we go into is you become hyper aware of what everybody else is doing.
Yes.
Because you're avoiding what you do. Like, you're still avoiding what it is that you're doing. So you become hyper aware of everybody else. And, you know, so you start to be like, you know, oh, all these spirituality things, like I've got to like tell everybody, and I've got to like, and I've done it. And, you know, where you see, like, you pick up on things that people are doing and you tell them, and it's like,
yes.
one of the things I learned, and I'm still working on it too, is about, you know, you don't have permission to go into other people's energy fields or be giving them like, you know, what you see.
Yeah.
And because they might not be ready for that.
No, and it's not your job to tell them that they need to get ready for it or they need to change their ways. It's their own journey.
Yeah, these lessons in consent even of, again, the people pleaser who just wants to come in and fix everything for everybody. And it's like, no, that's not your job.
Yeah.
It is not your job. And it's so much to unlearn. You know, just giving that space to go, okay, that's somebody else's journey, but what is it that it's kind of reflecting for me? And what you said about that feeling of safety, like I still experience it from time to time where, you know, something will occur when I'm around someone or people who are drinking, and I will just feel like, and it's not that they are making me unsafe. Like it's a completely safe space. There are people who love and look after me and support me, but something in my body is remembering something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that.
It's remembering a past moment where I wasn't safe.
Yes.
And it comes, and I just feel everything start to go,
yeah.
I don't want to be here right now. And so I'm going to start like just taking it out on you. Like, you guys are like, I can't believe you're being so drunk and you're being so silly and blah, 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 blah. And it's not actually about them. Like, it's just, I don't want to feel this right now. I don't want to feel this. So I'm just going to be like, you guys are idiots.
That was literally me to a T for like three solid months. I was just losing it. My poor partner, like, he popped it hardcore. I mean, of course, did it help? No, it helped nothing. Like, it only made the situation worse. And plus, it made him feel so guilty, like, and shamed. And I felt so terrible as someone, you know, who's in recovery, who really understands that feeling of guilt and shame and how much damage those emotions can do to us. To then know that I was making my partner feel guilt and shame by me being all like, you know, you and your drinking, you know, just really coming so hard down on him. And, you know, that just made me feel awful. So I really had to do more work on that.
Yeah. You know, the thing that has been highlighted for me, and this is probably like a beautiful thing to kind of come to a closure on this entire discussion because it wraps all of it up, is the practice that we have implemented the most, or I have implemented the most from all of this, is that coming back together afterwards for that re-regulation.
Yes.
Like, even if I've had these moments where I'm reactive or I'm activated or triggered or whatever it is, and after, like, once I then take, you know, some moments and I come back into myself and I'm like, okay, hang on, here's what actually happened, and be able to come back to somebody and apologize.
Yes.
If they are open for it. So, you know, being able to say, hey, are you in a space where we can chat about this? And if they're not, respecting that, and that's it. And then apologizing, and then being able to talk about it and go, well, here is what I experienced here. And they can do the same. And then we have a better understanding of what went on.
Yes.
And why each person was perhaps, you know, reactive in that situation or reacted in the way that they did. And to then go, okay, now that we know this, we can do better next time. I still love you. I'm sorry. Thank you for seeing me and for helping me to relearn what safety feels like.
Yeah, and I think that's so important as well. That's something me and my partner do a lot of. We are very big on communicating, and as soon as and again, that all starts with that self-awareness, right? Like understanding yourself and your needs and how you're feeling. So as soon as those things would come up, I would literally just say like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I obviously don't want to react. I don't want to get worked up. So, this is just where I'm at. Like, can you meet me here? Like, can we just talk through it? And let's come to some kind of resolution where I'm feeling better, you're feeling better, and we can kind of move through it. So it's really important to communicate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'll have to wrap it up, but I do want to quickly kind of just go over very, very briefly on your services and your business and what you have kind of available at the moment. I mean, you've just touched a little bit on like your women's circles throughout this episode, but I know you've also got another business too, so they Expand Your Horizons Academy. So if you wouldn't mind briefly telling us a bit about both of those businesses and kind of where people can find that information if they're interested in becoming a part of it, what the costs are involved if you feel comfortable sharing that, and from there.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll just do a quick one because the best place to find any info and links to things is probably my Instagram. So just Emma Makepeace with an underscore at the end. I am currently organising a fundraiser for domestic violence support services on the Sunshine Coast. So we have an event called Shine happening in August. All the details are, again, on my Insta. My website's being redone at the moment. So that's why Insta is the best place to go. I'm really excited for the Shine event. It's going to be a beautiful lunch at Mooloolaba overlooking the ocean, and we're raising money for Lily House, which is a charity organisation that provides accommodation and counselling services and life skills courses and workshops and things to support families and women who have left domestic violence situations. So really important charity and services provided. And it came about because of the work that I do in my women's circles, which is called Embrace You, where I have so many women come into my spaces who, the amount of women who are doing these healing things in their life, it's generally because they've experienced some form of trauma. And a lot of that is unfortunately through domestic violence. And so it just seemed like the next evolution of it was to, let's create something that brings women together to talk about the evolution after. Like, I really like this word evolution, like the growth that, it's a shitty thing that happens and it would be really lovely if it didn't fucking happen. But right now, you look at the numbers in this country, like it's horrific. So there is this massive need for support services and also for hope for life after, that your life, that you matter, that your self-worth, your self-love, all of it is important and you can get it back. That what you've been told about yourself is not true. And to create a space for highlighting that as well, to shift the focus to, just that you matter. You matter, you matter, you matter, always. And so Embrace You is the driving force behind that, and it's a women's circle / photo shoot experience that myself and Sunshine Coast photographer Frankie Hall create, and it's really about allowing women to come and embrace all of themselves. So, we've had women who have come along who didn't love their bellies after giving birth, and they were like, you will never catch me with my belly out. And then have had a photo taken of their belly and then had it go viral on social media because they were like, yep, go on, put it up there. And because they were like, do you know what? This belly actually carried babies. And I love this belly, with all that comes with that, all the rolls and all the dimples and all the things. And to see that shift take place for people is just incredible. And with no force, no pressure, it's just, if you do you come to it. And if you want to wear, no bra and clothes that I'm talking about myself right now, clothes that you picked up at a garage sale because you feel comfortable in them, go for it. If you want to strip off to your undies or your G-string or whatever and be like, whoa, I'm here, go for it. If you want to be full frocked up and, let your inner child out to play dress ups and embody the goddess in you, go for it. You want to wear makeup? Do it. You don't. But it's really about taking that pressure off to, one, get a photo shoot done only because you have kids and it's like, well, I need to get family photos. What about getting photos just because you're fucking awesome and like you need to document this season of your life, and to go and have fun and remember what it's like to be creative and have joy in your life and that kind of thing. So that's where it started from and has kind of evolved. So we have another one of those coming up in August as well, and they're done around the Sunshine Coast too. So I'll have details up of that soon. And then the other one that I'm involved in is I'm a co-founder of Expand Your Horizons, Academy. We've got one of our courses in there is called Expand Your Life, and that's the one that I have a big part in. And so it is a online course teaching people how to create an online business in high-ticket affiliate marketing. And my involvement, so I co-created that with two other people, Brent and Molly Orwell, and my involvement is very much around the mindset side of things for business and teaching people how to not overcomplicate it, how to not overthink things, how to look after themselves while building a business so that you're not burning out, so that you can, we want to build this for the long term, not for, the next 6 months and then you burn out and then you don't ever do anything with it again.
Yes.
So, it's really important to me for people to, just have that accountability or have that support person to be like, hey, yes, you're doing great, you're doing all these things, but maybe these things aren't actually like, income generating. They're just procrastination.
Yeah.
And here are the things, because like we're all good at procrastinating. And so having somebody that, can kind of be like, you can like add that one in once you've got these foundational things sorted, because there's a lot of stuff when it comes to building a business to think about. And so having that support there is really important. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Emma, for sharing and for coming on today. I had such a great conversation with you. I mean, it's not often that I go I disregard a lot of the questions that, we pre-write, but I was just really getting so engaged in our conversation. I was like, I don't want this to end. Sorry, skipping that question, skipping the next.
That's all right. I'm pretty adept with it because I'm like, I do the same. I'm like, we're not doing questions because I know we won't stick to it. Like we'll go down a tangent somewhere and just off over there and that's where it needs to go.
Yeah.
That is exactly where it needs to go, and anything that wasn't said isn't required right now.
Exactly.
It's required later.
Exactly. So thank you so much, and I'll be in touch with you soon. Definitely want to know more about this event that you're hosting in Queensland, and hopefully I can get it up on my website when it launches, which will be soon. Fingers crossed.
I will send you all the details for it. So thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. All right. We'll see you, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.